Welcome to Echoes of Faith, where ancient truth speaks into your today. Here, scripture, theology, and the languages of the Bible come alive to build your faith, steady your heart, and draw you closer to God. Today's episode is titled The Raising of the Widow's Son, Faith that Cries Out in Grief. Our scriptural text is taken from 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 17 to 24. After the miracle of provision in Zarephath, tragedy suddenly enters the house. The widow's son becomes sick and stops breathing. Questions rise. Fear returns. The same home that experienced miraculous supply now faces devastating loss. In this episode, we explore the raising of the widow's son through the original Hebrew text, classical interpretation, and theological reflection. We uncover how faith wrestles honestly with suffering, why grief can coexist with trust, and how God responds to desperate prayer. This episode speaks to anyone who has ever asked difficult questions after obeying God. It reveals that faith is not the absence of pain. It is the refusal to abandon God in the middle of the pain. There is a quiet rhythm in the house at Zarephath. Every morning, the widow reaches into the clay jar and finds a handful of flour. Every evening, she pours a drop of oil from the jug. The famine continues to ravage the world outside, but inside these walls, there is daily, miraculous survival. The prophet is living in the upper room. The mother and son are eating bread. It feels like the danger has passed. But the biblical narrative takes a sudden, shocking turn. We often assume that once we have experienced a profound miracle, we are immune to tragedy. We believe that obedience creates a shield against suffering. But 1 Kings 17 destroys that illusion. One moment, there is miraculous provision. The next moment, there is a severe medical crisis. The widow's son becomes sick. Today, we look at the darkest hour in Zarephath. We look at what happens when the God of provision suddenly feels like the God of silence, and how true faith learns to cry out in the dark. Verse 17 describes the tragedy with terrible precision. Now it happened after these things that the son of the woman who owned the house became sick, and his sickness was so serious that there was no breath left in him. The original Hebrew word for breath here is incredibly significant. It is neshama. Neshama. Neshama means the breath of life, the vital living breath, or the divine spark of vitality. This takes us all the way back to Genesis 2, where God forms man from the dust and breathes into his nostrils the neshama of life, and man becomes a living soul. Now, that divine breath is gone. The boy is dead. Faith must learn a very difficult lesson in this room. A miracle in your finances does not guarantee a miracle in your health. The daily presence of flour and oil did not stop the sickness from taking the breath of the child. The widow turns to Elijah. She is holding the lifeless body of her only son. Her response is not a quiet, polite prayer. It is an explosion of grief. What have I to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son? This is the raw, unfiltered voice of grief. Pain always searches for an explanation. The human mind hates random tragedy, so it tries to find a cause. Her theology, like the theology of many in the ancient world, assumes a direct equation. Suffering must equal judgment. If my son is dead, God must be punishing me. She looks at the prophet and blames his holy presence for exposing her unholy past. Look at her exact phrasing. Have you come to bring my sin to remembrance? The Hebrew verb is zakar. It means to remember with active, piercing awareness. Trauma possesses a cruel mechanism. Intense pain often awakens buried guilt. When we experience sudden loss, we instantly revisit our old failures. We review our past mistakes and convince ourselves that our current tragedy is the delayed penalty for our previous sins. Faith must confront this false assumption. God is not a cosmic accountant executing the widow's son for a past mistake. We must learn to untangle our grief from our guilt. How does Elijah respond to this bitter accusation? He does not defend himself. He does not offer a theological lecture on the origin of suffering. He does not tell her she is lacking faith. He simply looks at her and says, "Give me your son." This is a masterclass in compassion. Elijah makes room for her grief. He absorbs her anger without arguing. God is entirely unthreatened by our honest pain. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to ask impossible questions. Elijah does not try to fix her theology. He simply reaches out his hands and takes the lifeless body from her arms. Faith does not avoid brokenness. It carries it directly toward the presence of God. Verse 19 tells us where Elijah takes the boy. So he took him out of her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on his own bed. The upper room is an elevated space. In biblical symbolism, going up always represents drawing near to the presence of God. Elijah leaves the noise, the weeping, and the accusation downstairs. He steps into the quiet isolation of the prophet's chamber. The Hebrew narrative slows down completely right here. There is silence. There is stillness. There is the heavy reality of loss. Faith often meets God most deeply in hidden, isolated places, far away from the chaotic voices of the crowd. Elijah closes the door. He looks at the boy on the bed. And then the great prophet breaks down. Then he cried out to the Lord and said, "O Lord my God, have you also brought tragedy on the widow with whom I lodge by killing her son?" The Hebrew verb for cried out is za'ak. Za'ak. It means to shriek, to cry out in profound anguish or desperation. Elijah is praying the exact same complaint the widow just yelled at him downstairs. He is completely bewildered. "Lord, she fed me. She obeyed you. Why would you allow this calamity to enter her house?" Faith is not robotic acceptance. It is deeply relational honesty. If you do not understand what God is doing, you are invited to ask him, why? Elijah does something entirely unprecedented. Verse 21 says, "And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times. This act is deeply symbolic and intensely intimate. Elijah does not stand across the room and issue a command. He lays his own living body directly over the cold, lifeless body of the boy. He aligns his face with the boy's face, his hands with the boy's hands. He enters physically into the space of death. This is the ultimate picture of intercession. True intercession requires identification. You cannot pray effectively for someone from a distance. You must be willing to feel the chill of their suffering. As he stretches over the child, Elijah prays a specific, daring prayer. "O Lord my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him." The English translation says soul or life. The Hebrew word is nephesh. Nephesh. Nephesh is an incredibly comprehensive word. It means the soul, the lifeblood, the inner being, the living self. It is the totality of the person. Elijah is not just asking for a biological heartbeat to resume. He is asking for the boy's entire identity, his living essence, to be restored. Faith seeks the absolute restoration of the whole person. Elijah is demanding that death reverse its grip and release the nephesh back into the physical frame. Verse 22 records the turning point of history. Then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah. The Hebrew verb is shama. Shama. It means to hear attentively, to listen with favor, and to respond with action. The God of the universe listens to the agonized zak of a prophet in a dusty upper room. God responds to desperate, authentic prayer. Death is the great finality of the human experience. But this verse proves that human grief can still reach the ear of heaven. The text says the nephesh of the child came back to him, and he revived. The impossible is reversed. The breath returns. The chest rises. This is the very first recorded resurrection in the biblical text. Faith begins to glimpse the supreme authority of God over the grave itself. Elijah picks up the living, breathing boy. He walks down the stairs. He finds the weeping mother. "See, your son lives." This moment is overflowing with humanity. God did not just perform a miracle to prove a theological point. He performed a miracle to give a shattered mother her child back. Faith is not an abstract set of doctrines. Faith enters the darkest rooms of real human suffering, and it brings real, tangible restoration. Elijah hands the boy back. The empty arms are filled again. The widow takes her son. She looks at Elijah, and her entire perspective shifts. "Now by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is the truth." Notice her progression. The daily provision of the flour and the oil revealed God's care, but the resurrection of her son revealed God's absolute authority. She knew Elijah was a prophet before, but the fire of this specific suffering burned away every shadow of doubt. Faith deepens exponentially through the crucible of experience. You can know God as provider in the light, but you only know him as the resurrection in the dark. Ancient Aramaic and Greek interpretive traditions highlight the immense compassion of this narrative. The Septuagint emphasizes that God acted purely out of mercy toward the mother's tears. Psychology tells us that grief creates profound confusion. It shatters our assumptions about how the world should work. This story tells us that God is perfectly willing to sit with us in that confusion. Are you wrestling with an agonizing loss today? Did you obey God, only to find that the sickness still came, or the door still closed? Do not withdraw your heart. Do not silence your questions. Take your pain to the upper room. Cry out, "Zach," to the Lord. Faith is the courageous decision to keep talking to God, even when your heart is broken. The breath returned to Zarephath. The boy lives. Elijah has learned that the God of Israel holds the keys to death itself. He is now ready to leave the hidden places and confront the King of Israel. Thank you for carrying the weight of this beautiful story with us today. The widow's home is restored, and the prophet is prepared for war. Next time, we turn to a completely different era, an invading army and a king who discovers that worship is a weapon. Thank you for listening to Echoes of Faith. May the word you heard today strengthen your spirit, renew your hope, and deepen your walk with God. Until next time, keep your heart open and let faith speak.